I know you're looking at me, you get confused, you hear me talking about Savage Worlds, you're seeing the bald head, and you think you're on Kurt Weagle's channel. No, you're not. You are now and forever here with your main man. You understand, baby? And we're going to be talking about the Savage Worlds Horror Companion for the SWADE edition of Savage Worlds. Let me first of all start by saying off that I really enjoy Savage Worlds. I'm playing in an every other Friday night superhero Savage Worlds games. I think we've played maybe 8 sessions so far. My son's in the game. He loves it. I love it. It's a great game. My buddy the Moon, Steve, who has been at least 1 or 2 videos on my channel, and some of you might know him out there. He's running the game, doing a fantastic job, and we're really enjoying that. And we're enjoying the system. I think it's a real well done system and very interesting, and that's why you're hearing the reviews of the books. That being said, anyone that's unaware, just to run through a little bit of my background. I've been playing games since I'm 10, running games since I'm 10. My birthday was just a couple days ago. I am 46 now, so that means 36 years in this glorious hobby. There's no, I left for 7 years, for 5 years, for 4 years, for 3 years. No. There hasn't been a year that's gone by that I haven't been involved, haven't been playing games, haven't been running games, haven't been in all sorts of different role-playing games. I've played a stack of them over the years. In addition to that, not only do I own my own company, Raw Immersive Games, you can pick up the books Within the Ring of Fire. DriveThruRPG.com, go get them. There's 5 books in the series. I've written for a number of other companies and produced a lot of gaming products over the years as well. So I understand it from a design standpoint, from a creator standpoint, what goes into it. So when I review, and that being said, again, one of the first RPG reviewers on YouTube for many goddamn, like 15 plus years. God, has it been more than 15 years? Yeah, that's horrifying. How the time doth go, baby. Woo! By God. I got the Iron Sheik on my back. He's got me, Jack. And speaking of that, speaking of mealy mouth pieces of trash out there, one of the Savage Worlds fanboys got mad with my fantasy companion review. Some type of review, baby. And you know what they called your main man the worst thing anyone has ever called me in my life. They called me a Wizards of the Coast fanboy. Now listen, anyone watching my channel, you know. But let me tell to those who aren't in the Barbarian Horde, who don't know what's really good, I cannot stand Wizards of the Coast. If you want to watch some of my videos about them, where I have wished all the worst horrors in the world upon them and their families, I think these people are vastly and disgustingly damaging our hobby, which I take to be very serious and a serious affront. I think that our hobby would be in a vastly better place if anyone was in charge of it besides the gibbering imbeciles at Wizards of the Coast. I have no respect for them. I have no use for them. I have no like for them. So no, I don't buy any of their products. I don't support them. I don't support their view of the hobby. I support them with the back of my hand, and that's about the only support they get from me. So absolutely not. Just because I'm going to be critical, and I have a critical mind and a critical eye to push things to be better, don't think, get all butthurt and bitch ass and think, your main man likes Wizards of the Coast. No, I don't. I did enjoy the 3.5 D&D line, which you can see behind me. This is only I don't know. You're not even seeing half the books I have here. That's significantly less than half the books that are in the house. But I can't be in front of everything at the same time. So, I play a lot of games. I do a lot of games. Enjoy a lot of games. And I'm going to give you my critical impressions. That doesn't mean I'm going to rubber stamp everything like a paid shill or ad. So don't get that kind of idea in your mind that's the way the thing should go. So we are going to talk about the good and the bad with the Horror Companion. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to say that right off the front. I think it was an excellently done product. I thought it was better than the Fantasy Companion, which I also enjoyed. So there were just some issues, and I brought that up. Right. So with this particular game, let's start off with the cover. So the cover is reused art from this book. The cover of the Horror Companion, at least as it is on the PDF, that could change. The physical copy is still, from what I understand, I think it ships at the end of September. But it may be later than that. I'm not sure. I spoke to one of their girls, I think her name was Anne, over there, and I asked some questions some months ago, and I believe that that's what she said. The Fantasy Companion has not shipped yet, as far as I know. It is June 29th at the time of recording this at 3:05 on the East Coast. So, of America. In case anyone couldn't figure out that I'm American. Literally the first thing that I hear from any foreigner, "Oh, you're so American!" Yeah, well, fuck you. So, this book, the Savage Worlds role-playing game, and this is their character Red. They have two characters that they portray over and over again in the different settings, which at first I was like, oh, that's weird. But as I see it more and more and more, I do like it. And Red is one of their two characters. The other one is Gabe. I have a question for those out there. Are they, like, I don't know, I don't want to sound mean, but they should have pictured the kids back here. And I don't know, they look, are they meant to be like ill or something? Is there something meant to be actually wrong with them? I'm not exactly sure, but that was kind of the impression that I got when I looked at it, which is kind of sad, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure if these are real people or not. I'm guessing they're not, but I suppose they could be as well. Anyway, on page 192, we can see this artwork. So it is this artwork that is on the cover of that book, and you shouldn't do that. As a game designer, you shouldn't do. You can't. Your cover artwork needs to be such an important piece. I think the artwork is fine, but I see this on the shelf. I'm not like, oh, like, I don't know. I think this artwork is better. It's more evocative and interesting. Of course, it's red on both of them. In fact, this, yeah, I see it's literally the same clothes. So, whatever this is, it's the same. It's from the same game, right? She's wearing all the same outfits. She's got the same gun, everything. It's the same deal. In fact, there's even snow there. But I didn't. It's fine. It's a good piece of art. I mean, technically, it's quite nice, right? But putting it in this book on page 192 and then reusing it for a cover, not good. Maybe they'll use a different cover by the time they put the book out. Can't speak to that. Don't have a physical book in my hand. Just looking at the PDF. So that's all I can assume, that the PDF as it is at this time, as I've told you the date and time, and I got mine, I don't know, a week ago maybe. No, June 19th is when I got it. June 19th, yeah. So 10 days ago I got this. Little birthday present to myself. So, let's put that book down now. And let's talk about it. I'm going to get inside of the guts of the book, of the contents, and we're going to go through this stuff. I did not read every single word in this book. Particularly things like edges and hindrances, that sort of thing. I don't memorize and retain those sort of things. Anyone that's watched my channel, you know that's not really what gaming is for me. It's not this mechanical interaction. It's about the mental exchange and the mental transference from, you know, what is the normal world to what is that fantasy scape that's being created in the game, right? Because all we're doing is sitting there talking. But when we're talking and we're thinking in character, we're not talking anymore. We're not having a conversation. We're doing somewhere. We're somewhere else. We're transported. And that's the beauty of role-playing games. That's what I love. So it's more towards that I look. But what does it start off with? So let's look. Chapter 1 is characters. So they really, and on their website, I mean, this is extremely heavy-handed, right? They're clearly going after old World of Darkness fans. Clearly going after them. They literally, they use all those words in the ad. I think they arrange them in a way where they might not be able to be sued. I don't know what all the statuses are currently with the World of Darkness. I know that World of Darkness has gone to a complete dumpster fire in the 90s. Those who might not be old enough for it, you know. I remember in the 90s, as a teenager, the World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade was the hottest thing out there. It was crushing D&D. You would go to the mall, you would go to metal shows, you would go to the pool hall, you'd see people in Toreador shirts and Tremere shirts and Nosferatu shirts and Bourgeois shirts. It was everywhere. It was a common thing. There were lots and lots of people that did not look like what the traditional dorky gamer was at the time. People that looked like, you know, they were members of like biker gangs or heavy metal bands. You know, people who were super gothic culture. Really, it was permeating and it was popping and it was cool. And it's fallen into disrepair with a bunch of gibbering idiots running the show there with their properties, and it's been ping pong ball around. So I understand why Savage Worlds would try to reach out and grab that audience, grab people like me who love Vampire the Masquerade, try to grab them and pull them in. So it's very clearly trying to do that, and we have set up some new races, and the races are done in a different way. These are not races that stand side by side with a human, gnome, elf, dwarf, whatever from this book or from the fantasy book. So it starts off right away with telling you what sort of points you need to put on a basic human if you want to run them inside the group to balance them out, which is fantastic. I'm all for that. I don't really love the idea of one person getting to play, a powerhouse, or one person had to play just a complete bitch ass in the darkness. And nobody's down for those tactics. That's really not what people are there for. They're to pull up at the table and be able to make their contribution in whatever way it is. It doesn't mean that people need to be equal in every portion. It just means your character overall should be close to someone else's. You shouldn't be, walking around like you're an extra and they're a star. That's just less than fun for most players. And I think when you balance those things out, I think that's overall better. And balance doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to try to get in here. That's where balance should be, not everything that's right here. Everything does 1d6 damage, That's garbage. Get out of here with that. You want to go flavor over anything else, but at the same point, close. Not here, but close, right? So, and this is maybe rambling a lot as I go through this stuff. I like to really get into it and give you my stream of consciousness thought. That's my perspective. I don't write scripts. I don't do any of that type of stuff. I don't even monetize my videos. I just put it out there and just let you sort of see what's happening, as if I'd force you in a corner and just am talking at you for long periods of time. So they have some stuff here in the beginning. It's what's in the book: new hindrances, new skills, new edges. But then it pops off on page 12 with the new races that you can play, and they have angels as the first one, which is interesting. That's an interesting idea. I think that, and they talk about it in this book, that how bizarre angels are. Like if you read the Old Testament, well, how they really describe angels, and then you look at what a modern day description is. They're definitely trying to produce something more on the modern day description, and they do kind of make a mention of the other part. So they have angels to play. Demons, although they mention that these are minor demons that you're playing, as they have a major demon later in the monster section. Of course, as you go along, you can get more and more powers. One of the things I really like is the different races here all have some individual edges that only that race can take, which I think adds to them. It adds to the flavor of that race overall, and adds a little bit more to the baseline. They have a baseline of powers that are, again, very much stronger. Is that door shut? Yeah, my son just walked in. I'm talking about the Savage Worlds Horror Companion. Mm-hmm. You like Savage Worlds?
Yeah, definitely.
You may or may not have been able to hear him. He said, yeah, definitely. Okay, so we have angels, we have demons, we have mummies. I'm not really a big fan of mummies. The World of Darkness always tried to push off mummy games. Nobody tried playing a damn mummy. They were unbalanced, they were clunky, they were stupid, they were poorly done. There was all kinds of stuff wrong there. Just get out of here with that. Patchwork monster, which is I've heard that term before, but it was an interesting way to say golem, which I think they actually have golems in this book too. But you're basically Frankenstein's monster, which I think is an extremely playable sort of race for monsters. Then you have a phantom, so that's basically your ghost, your wraith, whatever. Then you have a revenant. So I have an audience. My son's sitting in
yes,
right in front of me here. He's just off camera. You have revenants, which are, like the crow, basically. So you can play that, and then obviously we've all seen a crow. Anyone watching this, you've seen a crow. If you haven't, go watch a crow. It's fantastic. The sequels is don't watch those; they were not fantastic. But the original was a great movie. Burn, either my son or I are playing Burn by the Crow in the house. By the Cure, by the Crow. Burn by the Cure on the Crow movie. That soundtrack, that song's almost omnipresent in the house. Love that song. Love the Cure. So does my son. And of course we have vampires. There's way more stuff for vampires in this book than anything else. You can certainly play them, and it might take a little bit of work to build edges and try to balance them out to really integrate Vampire the Masquerade into Savage Worlds, but they give you a good enough baseline that you could do it, and it could take certain things off the base Vampire that they provide, and a lot of the edges that are in the book could certainly allow you to play, a Vampire the Masquerade game. Even, there's already a lot of magic in the game, so to some degree, maybe the powers aren't line for line the same, but you could certainly work in necromancy. You could certainly work in thaumaturgy. Serpentis or Quietus would take just a bit more work, but you could certainly do more exotic disciplines like that, right? Obeah, whatever. So the vampires, they're well done. I liked it. I may, some far-flung point in the future, so I got 8 games still in mind to run after the next game I run. And when I run a game, they go like a year, 2 years. I had one that went 4.5 years. So I give volume. I'm not one of these game masters. Oh, yeah, every 5 sessions we're going to fizzle out or run short things. And people ain't trying to do that. People are trying to get a character, really getting that meat. So they also have werewolves, which my son is mentally ill over. He's nodding his head about that. Werewolves have been his favorite thing since he was 3 and found out accidentally what a werewolf was. His first favorite thing was Godzilla, and after that was werewolves, and there has not been a third favorite thing. It's just werewolves. His favorite band is Powerwolf. He loves werewolves. He is probably the equivalent of a master's degree in werewolves. He knows so much about them. After that, we have gear. I did not do anything more than skim this chapter. Gear isn't... For evaluating a book for what's interesting to me, it's of close to zero interest. I don't really care. When I'm putting a character together, I might go back and sort of comb through these sort of things. But even then, I'm not someone that tries to gear break a game. I just don't care about stuff like that very much. I want to really more have the gear sort of naturally introduced through the game. I'm like a regular person that's walked into most of these games here, particularly in a horror setting. I'm playing a horror person, right? Or even if I'm playing a vampire, it doesn't mean he needs to have all these bizarre items. From the start, work it in, build it up. This is lodges. I guess that's like your keep or castle or... Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember what they called them in the Superheroes Companion. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Chapter 3, setting rules. They have some... This is well done. It's sort of a Game Master's chapter. And the book itself, for a Dungeons & Dragons fan, that's really all you've played. Imagine this book sort of as a combination, player's handbook, right? Because we have races in it. A Dungeon Master's book, because we have a lot of tips like the Chapter 3 setting rules for a Dungeon Master. And then you have a large chapter on monsters. So, that would be more like a monster manual. So it cuts all 3 of those things out. So we go, it goes through all kinds of stuff here. It talks about your style and trying to help you with that, with terrain and weather and those sort of things. So it was interesting. It was well written. I enjoyed it. I think there's a lot of stuff in there that's pretty good for new game masters. And I definitely looked at the Fantasy Companion, and a lot of the negatives I had to say are the fact that it would be hard for a new player to interface with this. A lot of us have been doing this forever, and we know everything about this, that, the next thing, right? So we don't need that basic stuff. But from a brand new player, if you look at something and you can't really understand it, it's going to turn you off. It's going to make you feel dumb. It's going to confuse you. And or you're going to go off in a completely wrong direction. And yes, I said wrong, because you can do things right and wrong in role-playing games. And when you're off in a wrong direction, that can kind of open you up to a lot of negative things on the backside of it, right? So you need to understand what you're doing. Like they used to say, creative writing classes in college. Learn the rules before you break the rules, and that's sort of important. You want to know what you're doing before you start changing things, and you should change things, but change them because you know what you're doing, not because you're unaware. Chapter 4, magic. They spell magic in the New Age, neo-pagan way, the M-A-G-I-C-K, which I'm not like super, like, come on, man. Like, I don't know how to put it. Like, you'd see that like in the Meiji Ascension books, from like 1993. That's, you don't really need to be doing that anymore. That's just silly, right? Get out of here with that. That's just a nonsense word. So just edit that. Just edit it out. Just don't even release it like that. Just edit it. That's just silly. Look, man, there's no real magic. You can't do magic. If you think you can, just leave me a dislike and don't watch my videos because you're fucked. It's not real, okay? It's just the result of mental illness and foolishness, right? So don't put that over. I'm not, and that's a really, 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 really tiny thing. But I'm not going to get into that. So they have arcane backgrounds. They have a whole bunch of them. And between this and the fantasy companion, I've really enjoyed the arcane backgrounds. I think it's going to add a lot of flavor to the game. Let's see. I don't like Alchemist, so I didn't read that. I read all the rest of these, though. I thought they really provided some interesting stuff. Let me see. Which one? Blighted. So Blighted are kind of like a D&D sorcerer. They have a really interesting ability. They can take the edges of any of the arcane backgrounds. A lot of these arcane backgrounds have their own edges. They really kind of went to town with the voodooist. I thought they were called Vooduns. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But they went to. There's a lot of information there on that one, and it's kind of an interesting background. It limits which powers you can take, but then it gives you some edges and it tells you how many power points you get per background. So, you have alchemist, blighted, demonologist, fortune teller, medium, occultist, priest, psychic, investigator, voodooist, and warlock/witch. And this, apparently warlocks and witches are the same thing. Culturally speaking, I would say probably not. It's just to say real world. And in the games like Dungeons and Dragons, they're not the same thing. In a game like Within the Ring of Fire, it's not the same thing. Those are different things. So, perfectly fine and go through either one. Julian Sands just died recently from Warlock. Loved that movie when I was a kid. Loved Warlock. Warlock 2 wasn't good, but that mirror scene of Warlock 2 was awesome. Worth watching the movie just for that. Really evocative, really giving you some great ideas. So, I enjoyed these. I thought these were good. And they have some new powers here as well. The Chapter 5 Arcane Items. They had some interesting stuff in here. They had the Diary of the Madman! That's right. Come on, man. He's fucking right there, Fucking Ozzy Osbourne, man. So, there is I think it's 30th edition video for Hellraiser that my son he loves that song. It's a duet. Instead of a single, there's a Lemmy Kilmister single, and there's Ozzy Osbourne single off No More Tears. And on the Ozzy Osbourne single, Lemmy Kilmister sings backup vocals. I think he wrote the song, Lemmy did, of Motorhead fame. He did, yeah, okay. So it's Lemmy's song, and Ozzy. At that time, Motorhead was trending down, let's put it that way. And Lemmy did backup vocals and things like that, and I think he wrote songs and this sort of thing. Really, and if you don't know Motorhead or you only know Ace of Spades, just go and really listen to Motorhead, man. Really listen to them. They are fantastic. One of the things, like if I'm writing, I really like to put the Motorhead on. They are great. One of the best bands ever. So they have that. And in the video for Hellraiser, the 30th edition, it's a duet between Ozzy and Lemmy. And they have them like kind of cartooned up. And there's so many, I guess you call them Easter eggs, little pieces in there that are awesome. The van's called Mr. Crowley, and he has Ozzy's like a wizard and Lemmy's like a warrior. So, and they're fighting against aliens, and Ozzy pulls out this book, and it's called The Diary of a Madman, and he starts like casting spells out of it. It's great. So, The Diary of a Madman trumps everything else, but they have Grimoires in here. They had a bunch of different magical items that I thought overall were all pretty neat. The artwork in the book, Sam's what he said about the cover art, very, very good. I really liked the artwork in here. Same thing I said in the fantasy companion, though, dude. You've got to put pictures of every single monster in a book, particularly when you are bereft of detail. Some of these, if I was brand new to the hobby, when I first got role-playing game books, I would not have understood what you're even talking about. And you might say, well, you can do an internet search or whatever, but the book you give me should have the information in it. I shouldn't need to go extrapolate. I shouldn't need to go do extra work. Like, I'm paying you for the book, so you do the work, right? That's not a lot to ask. But there's an artwork of Cthulhu in here. That was my favorite one. I really enjoyed that picture. But a lot of the pictures were good, and there was some slush art in here, obviously, but overall it seemed appropriate to where it was. Not just, we need a little more space here. We don't want to write anything else, so let's go back. Again, there's more they could have written in here, for sure. The layout of the book is fantastic. So the layout looks great. It looks like it could be an old sanitarium to the wall here. That's what comes to me first, but possibly like an old abandoned warehouse from like the 20s. So it kind of touches slightly on a liminal key, but then at the same point it definitely has a filthy, nasty horror feel. I like that some of the colors kind of come outside of the areas they should, almost into the text. I think it looks good. I think in this book too, I thought the layout was great. I think whoever's doing your layouts, they're doing a fantastic job. So gotta give them a big ups. I mean, they're no Alice Gillette, but they're doing a great fucking job. All right, so I'm just looking at some notes I have here. So let's see. I actually made notes for this. Yeah, I know. There's not a lot of them, but I made a few. So let's talk about Chapter 6, the creature. So this is your monster manual portion. They have some new monstrous abilities. They go over that. Customizing vampires and destroying vampires, which are... the customizing vampires part's pretty good. It's pretty good stuff. I'm going to come back and go over some of the creatures in here in more detail. The Scary Tale section, it's really like a Dungeon Master's. I don't know what they call. Is there a name for Game Master in Savage Worlds? Leave in the comments below if there is. I don't know. I should know that if there is, but I do not. You got Flame Tender, you got Keeper, you got Storyteller. You need to have a name for it, I think. I'm sure there's some other games that have names too. For me, it's Flame Tender. I think that's the best one, but I'm biased. Storyteller I always thought was pretty evocative too. Keeper I always thought was weird. That was a weird name. So Scary Tales, again, game mastery type stuff. It's about it's just stuff you'd find in a Dungeon Master's guide. It's well written. It's good. There's a lot of quotes inside the book. Most of them from like Rid or Gabe, and well, no, that's actually not true. A lot of them are from like horror movies and so forth. Now that I'm thinking about it, so there was a lot of them are appropriate and evocative, and then they have an appendix, the Cthulhu Mythos, which it's not even 10 pages. I don't know why the Cthulhu Mythos part was so small. I'm really not sure about that. But it was very small. So, and the beginning of it looks like it's like old and rusted out, like a cracking piece of signage. Like the way they did the layout is really good, and then it's almost like written in blood. The Cthulhu Mythos, very nice. They make mention of there's actually a picture of a Call of Cthulhu Keeper's Rulebook at Chaosium. I don't know if this is 7th edition. My Cthulhu stuff is 5th edition, so the newer editions I'm not as familiar with. So it goes in there talking about that. I think they even make a mention of Sandy. Did they mention Sandy Peterson? Maybe not. I thought they did. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But they have a picture, and I don't know somehow if Chaosium owns, because I know there was a problem with Dungeons & Dragons back in the day, and I don't know if or how Chaosium would own Lovecraft's and other people in the genre, how they would own that towards role-playing games. I know H.P. Lovecraft would not. He was definitely about like sharing things. It was, a brilliant, wonderful man that would allow people just to take his stuff and use it, and that's what made it so great. I think if everyone had that mindset, the world would be an amazingly better place. But I'm definitely not a fan of taking something that someone's made, making money off it, and then attempting to put your own agenda on it, and particularly if that's you making money. So if there's any sort of ownership there, that I don't know, let me know in the comments about that, because I've heard some things like that over the years. I never really looked into it though. So they have the color out of space. They just call it a color, and I guess maybe Lovecraft. I haven't read the Color Space in a long time. Maybe he also used the U, the British spelling. He was definitely an Anglophile.
I'm pretty sure he did.
Did he? Okay, so the gallery over here is telling me that he did. So I guess that's why they have the U in there. You read it recently?
Yeah.
Color Out of Space is fantastic. I know you just watched Die Monster Die, didn't you?
Yeah, I watched the movie too.
Die Monster Die is the Color Out of Space as an adaptation. There's a great Misfit song about it, and it was Boris Karloff's last movie, so well worth watching. I think it's from the 60s, maybe the late 50s, but it is in color, and it's great. Like, you should definitely watch the movie. If you were watching this review, you should definitely watch it. So they have the Color Out of Space in here. Again, not enough pictures. They have Dark Young. They did not use the word Shub Niggurath. I guess they're definitely. Savage Worlds has a trend that's it's in gaming way too much nowadays. They're way too politically correct, which I don't like. But we've been seeing that since the 90s, and yeah, I don't like it. So that's definitely in the negative column. But they do not use the word Shub Niggurath in here, and they have they just call her the Black Goat of the Woods with 1,000 young. They talk about the Dark Young, and that was notes in an abandoned house, something like that. They have the Dark Young in one of those. It's a really good story. That one in particular is really good. Color Out of Space is a good one. So, but the is it Notebook in an Abandoned House? Whatever the Dark Young are in, that one's a really good. I like that one a lot. That's towards the top. There is a picture on the next page, which is 191, of, I don't know what it's supposed to be of. It kind of vaguely looks Cthulhu-ish, but it's much smaller than Cthulhu would be, so I'm not too sure. And it looks like this guy has magic powers, or maybe the magic's coming off of Cthulhu. It's hard to see here for sure. But I mean, there's a good write-up. There's two paragraphs on the color, and then all the mechanics, and then there are on the Dark Young there are 3 paragraphs, and then all the write-up. This is 3 paragraphs beyond getting into all the stat blocks. Then we have Dimensional Shamblers. I'm all about the Dimensional Shamblers. They got let's see, 3 paragraphs as well. I think Dimensional Shamblers are great. And a Dimensional Shambler is within the realm, the color. It's going to be tough for the players really to fight that, right? They can experience and deal with it. Dark Young, easier than a color, and an Dimensional Shambler, the same thing. You could fight this as a monster, and you're probably just going to be running from it. But it goes into the, this is something, very clearly from another dimension, right? I mean, it's right in the name. So, very nice. Then we got a quote from Lovecraft, a big one, right? So they're kind of using this in place of artwork. Instead of the typical little quote, this is like a 1/6 of a page, something like that. And it's nice, this is a well-known quote. I'm sure many of you have heard this. There are horrors beyond life's edge that we do not suspect, and one sin, a wild man's evil. Prying calls them just within our range. So that's H.P. Lovecraft. What is the next that we have here? Flying polyps. So the flying polyps are. I always thought that was flying polyps is probably my least favorite name of anything in the Lovecraft mythology. I don't know. I don't really think it's great. And they have Gugs, which I thought Gugs is a really, really weird choice. Obviously, they have ghouls earlier, and they have something that's obviously deep ones. They didn't use the name deep one for it, so that's sort of represented. But a gug. I mean, gugs are creatures from the dreamland. They're big giants, and they're. I always thought, like in the artwork, I see gugs, and they look kind of goofy, which is the last thing I want. They're big and scarier, I guess, right? But they're goofy looking in a way too, and anything that kind of makes a player like is the wrong for H.P. Lovecraft stuff. Like the flying polyps do look fucking disgusting, but the gug are in here, and to me that was a very weird choice considering they have very few things in here. Then they have the hounds of Tyndalis, which I mean that's I guess to be expected, and of course outside of the deep ones are ghouls, the most well known or common of the base line you could interact with. I think are probably the Migo, and the Migo are in here, and the Migo entry is 2 paragraphs, but they're both really they're pretty fat paragraphs about the Migo. And then they have the Great Race, the Yith, and they have Shoggoths. Shoggoths only got 1 paragraph. Great Race has 2, 3 paragraphs, and they're large. They might actually have the most writing on them. Of course, the Great Race they're fantastic. They don't have Star Spawn in here. They don't have Byakhee or Night Gaunts. Night Gaunts is kind of surprising because I think I would have. My back loosen up here. They don't have Night Gaunts in here, which that one kind of surprises me. But then Gods of the Mythos, they have Great Cthulhu. If anything, I thought Cthulhu was a little too weak in here. I mean, to me, Cthulhu eats a D6 investigators around. That sounds about right. Not, but I don't know at what level you'd actually be able to defeat Cthulhu. But there are multiple pictures of Cthulhu in the book, and they're good. They're good. Well done art. Let's see here. Then you have the King in Yellow. I enjoyed this section as well. The King in Yellow is pretty well rendered. Nyarlathotep, the Crawling Chaos. They call him the Creeping Chaos. I always call him the Crawling Chaos, but and where Nyarlathotep went, rest vanished, for the small hours were rent with the screams of nightmare. H.P. Lovecraft. A weird piece of art at the bottom of 197. It looks like, I don't know, something that's somebody coughed some phlegm up or something. That's in the book. So let me pop back over to the monsters section. I wanted to point out there are, and they may correct this, I don't know, in the printed version, I hope so, but there are some typos I found in here. Let me see. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will mention a few of them. God damn it. It's not what I wanted. And again, some of these creatures, there's just not enough in here about them, which is, I think, overall one of the big weaknesses of Savage Worlds. No game is going to be perfect. There's going to be portions of something that aren't perfect, but let me see here. I think it's in the Zombie Dragon. Let me read through this real quick. I'm just going to point one out. If the people in charge of the game are watching, and I know you are, you could take a look at this one. Let me see here. Where is it? What is it? I don't know. I made a little note here. 79. And of course, I'm live to recording here. I can't find it. I'm not going to edit this video. I've edited very close to 0 videos. I don't care. Okay, here we go. Under Carrion Breath, there's an issue here. And there were a few others I noted throughout the book. I didn't note them down. And as good as this book is, as professional, as strong as the editing is in most places, Mistakes like this should definitely be fixed. But under Carrion Breath on page 178, you have, let's see, the dragons may breathe green fire for 3d6 damage, or it may belch forth a cloud of noxious gas, drawn, and then it's FRO. So I'm supposing that should be from, right? So the M is just absent. So drawn from its cavernous guts. So that's a pretty easy one to fix there. And I didn't note any other ones down, but there were maybe 6 of them I found in the book going through. Again, they aren't huge, but something like that, if, at this point it can probably still be fixed. I doubt they've sent to the printer yet, but I don't know. Okay, so let's go talk about some of these. I like the artwork for the Zombie Lord. I thought that was pretty cool. And that's another one. They didn't write that down as a playable race, but you could take the Zombie Lord and make that one a playable one. You just have to sit there and kind of work out their formula and carefully build that. So Will-O-Wisp, the write-up for them is fantastic. This is better than any of the old Dungeons & Dragons write-ups on Will-O-Wisp. Because it gives you stuff. It gives you hooks that you can use in the game. It's 4. Is it 4 paragraphs? Yeah, 4 paragraphs. So let me kind of go over this and explain. Some people are like, oh, well, how can you say that they should actually put work into their monsters, and not just give us a stat block and a name? So if you don't have a picture, a picture worth 1,000 words. So you can give me like 1,000 words, bro. Right? Not literally, but give me something that I can sink my teeth in. Give me plot hooks. Give me ways I can use it. Give me stuff I can do, and put that right in with the monster. That's where you get the ecology. That's where you get the way you can use this. And I might need to file the serial numbers off to slap in this world or this world or this world. But a Will-O-Wisp, I can use it in a fantasy world. I can use it in modern day horror. I can use it in 1920s horror. I can use it on a sci-fi game, 1,000 years in the future on a distant planet. Or I can work it right into a Call of Cthulhu type game. I can work it in all sorts of pulp games. So Will-O-Wisp is something that can be used in a lot of ways. So it says Will-O-Wisp are ghosts of witches and necromancers who have been burned at the stake. Right off the bat, boom, I got something to work with. I got an idea. Just that one sentence gives me, so I can work myself backwards and go to the Salem witch trials. Or I can go to like a Solomon Kane type game. Or I can go to this fucking Aquilonia, where Conan is just reaving people as his custom and won't. And I can put down those things, witches are bad, they're evil. Necromancers are bad, they're evil. And these are their ghosts, they're torment. This is right off the bat, you're giving me something to work with. You're giving me ecology, you're giving me plot hooks. When I write role-playing game books, I'm writing plot hooks. Always plot hooks, always plot hooks. Because what really matters is how I can use it. How can I use it? How can I use it? How can I use it? And I can read a plot hook, and I can take that plot hook and run with it. Or that plot hook is inspiring creativity. It might spawn off a completely different idea. But when I have almost nothing there, I'm not going to be inspired, which means that monster is going to go into the dump group. Whereas Will-O-Wisp, now, just off that first sentence, I can do a lot with it. Let's read on. They manifest as small handfuls of flickering white flame that are oddly cold to the touch rather than hot. Legend claims a brave observer can see a grinning face inside a Will-O-Wisp. Now, I think Will-O-Wisp, the reason I'm also reading this, I thought it was the best one. I read every single one of their monsters. I didn't read all the stat blocks because, again, I don't really care until I'm going to use a monster. I'm not going to remember that it has invulnerability and it's size -1. Who cares? I need to know that when it's come to the table, but what I need to know is how to use it, the plot hooks, the thoughts, that sort of thing. That's what I'm interested in reading when I'm reading a book. A Will-O-Wisp uses the glimmering light produced by its form to lure its intended victim to a secluded spot. Okay, again, sinister, ominous. This works really well for a horror book. I like it. Again, best written monster in the entire monster section. There it weakens the poor soul with a fire that seems to spring from hell itself. Okay, that's giving you something to work with there. So they're connected to hell. Necromancer ghosts, devils, demons, other ghosts. You can start populating things out and build a game that way, right? So if you have a theme of monsters, particularly for a more real world game, this can be sort of on the lower end of how they're getting into things. And the wisp, it's also, it could fight you, but more likely it's not going to. You're going to be seeing it, interacting with it, hearing stories, and you're going out and you're trying to ghost hunter it, right? Figure out what it is. So, I'm just from this, I'm thinking of all kinds of things I could do with this. I could produce several game sessions just off this Will o' the Wisp, just dealing with that, right? You have your you have hearing things, then you have investigating the things, and you have going out looking for it, then you don't find anything, you go out a different way, and then you do find something, and then you get closer to it, and you start finding like the old stories about Kazone McGee and how he was fucking just boiling people for their essential oils themselves, and he didn't give a fuck. So then they just burned the shit out of him in 1931. They got to him, and they went ahead and done him a murder on him. So you can come away with that sort of thing, and really produce some interesting stuff, right? Once its target succumbs to the heat, the ghost possesses his corpse, which immediately bursts aflame. All right, so now they're possessing people, so that's going to give you more to work with, more interesting stuff here, right? These burning zombies are sometimes referred to as flaming jacks. So that all of a sudden, like flaming jacks. Well, I want to do some research and I want to learn more about that. Why flaming jacks? So that's interesting, right? Makes you think of jack-o'-lanterns, right? So maybe you make the face like a jack-o'-lantern, like a glow is coming from behind the eyes, and all fucking like Halloween-esque. It could be fucking pretty horrifying, actually. You run around in the woods and it's black as shit out there. It's just pitch as a mug. And something's running towards you. You can see it off in the distance, and it's running towards you. And you're trying to run. Now you're trying to run and you're falling down and getting all scratched up because maybe you drop your flashlight and it breaks. Definitely, I like that flaming jacks. It's evocative, interesting. I said particularly among the rural populations. The ghost uses the reanimated body to wreak as much havoc as it can before it is consumed by the creature's otherworldly flames. So apparently, the zombie, the flaming jack, is going to be destroyed, and that's another interesting because now we have a time clock, right? They've possessed my son's character. Now the party didn't care really less about this character. It's a jabroni. It's not played well, and. But we get a time clock to it. We don't really care that much, but we have to work a little bit faster than the zero pace we're going to put to it. So, I don't know if you can hear him protesting across the room, but yeah, that's good. When you can put a time clock on things and you use it sparingly. You can't time clock. Maybe tongue tied saying that over and over again. You use it here, right? And then you don't use it again. A lot of things you can use once. In a whole campaign, a whole story, a whole saga, right? Once. Maybe you use it twice, right? But if it changes your pacing, changing pacing around, and this is something you really need to learn if you're a game master, changing pacing around is so important. If you run at this level, it doesn't matter, right? Because it doesn't matter. It can be high, it can be low, it can be in the middle. It doesn't matter. Once the players can kind of settle in, they kind of know what they can tune in for and tune out for. They're kind of, but if it's here, if it's boring, and then it's really exciting, and then it's boring, and then it's in the middle, and then it's here, and it's here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and it's it's all over the place. They don't know what to expect. Like, okay, it's boring. I can sit down and relax. That's when you get them when they really don't know the tone and pace, right? When you're running encounters, right? When I'm going to run encounters, we will go 5 game sessions. You won't fight anything in Dungeons & Dragons, for example, right? 5 game sessions. 6, 10, 15. And all of a sudden, you might get hit like 7 times in a row. Bam, 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 bam. And you're sitting there like half dead. All the spells are cast. All your potions are gone. 3 are laying there completely unconscious. 1 of you has a hit point. And, another one of you is like maybe at 20% of their hit points, and the spells are gone, the special abilities are gone, the turns are gone, all this stuff is gone, and you're sitting there terrified because you're like, oh god, we've been hit 7 times in a row. Where's 8? Oh god, where's 8? Oh no, oh no. But there is no 8. Where is there? Right? So you don't know. And when you're changing the pacing, you're changing what they're expecting. If they know what you're going to do before you do it, you fucked up as a game master. Make them have no idea what you're going to do, because that's when they get more on the edge of their seat. That's when they're more engaged. That's when they're more attentive. That's when they're more afraid that their character isn't going to make it. Because players, they attach to their characters, and if you can get them to be afraid they're going to lose their character, particularly if they don't, well, that's a great thing, because now they're more invested. They're amped up. They're tuned up. The adrenaline's starting to work, and they're trying to really think. Okay, how do I do? What I got to be smart. I got to do this. Now you're thinking realistically, right? So, but I do like that. I like the clock. Let's see. I've lost my place though. So the ghost uses there. Okay. Okay. This is preferably on those it believes wronged it in its former life. So this, again, this is a witch, this is a warlock, this is a necromancer, this is a demonologist, whatever you want to say, right? This is a man who's done dirty deeds, dark cheap, baby, and he got to pay a price of a wrestling lifetime. So he's out there to look for people, and maybe this has just happened, right? And you are the people who did something. Maybe there's a dirty secret in the town, right? So this is doing what? It's giving me ideas. This is giving me feed, even that, preferably on those it believes wrong in the former's life. That is ecology, right? That is a plot hook. That is spawning ideas. That's what you need to do in a book. Give me ideas. Let me read it and go, ooh, this is giving me a fertile soil to plant my imagination in. Because sometimes you need that, right? And that's great. I've always been a big proponent of reading monster books. Monster books are what I read when I'm putting a game together. I don't read Dungeon Master books or Player's Handbooks. I read monster books. And there might even be role-playing game monster books. We have a ton of monster books in the house. So you read that stuff and you go, oh, yeah, well, what about, well, that's interesting. And then you start building up kind of what you're going to do in the game, right? Initially, a will-o-wisp haunts the area near its death, seeking vengeance on those responsible for any and all wrongdoings against it during life. Okay, so now, so initially, that means initially, right? But maybe this is 100 years ago. And it's coming after the ancestors, right? So you can run that kind of deal. Like, well, you burn this person in 1890, and now the great-grandkids are having to deal with the shenanigans, right? So that could be interesting. A town with long roots run long, maybe. So that can be that, and you can even really make it sort of morally ambiguous, right? Well, this guy got burned to death by your great grandfather, so yeah, of course he wants revenge on you. And if you paint that to Paris, like, yeah, but how about me not dying? I mean, that seems gooder than hell. So I guess we're fucking him up. But they learn him. They can learn old newspaper stories. They can learn all these things and learn about this person as a person. Maybe you paint in like. I'm not for jet black, right? You gotta paint in shades of gray, right? Even the worst people have done like things that are like, wow, that was actually a selfless and good act. Like, yeah, I actually like dolphins, so I wasn't gonna like stand for people polluting the bay and killing the dolphins. I mean, yeah, I eat children. I mean, it's not get twisted. I do like to eat me some 7-year-olds. Yeah, get over here. The meat just fall from the bone. But fuck it, I was actually the one to start the fucking let's not dump fucking motor oil in the bay foundation to save the dolphins. I like dolphins. Right? So when you put that sort of thing in there, that's really adds a lot to the game. You sparkle a few positive traits on top of a sinister individual. And that's the kids, because that's kind of commonly the witch thing, right? They've gotten a hold of the kids, they've done something to kids, or the necromancer, maybe they're preying on the elderly and the old folks homes or whatever. They're going by, and now, God, how skeevy is that, right? You think about, these old people drooling, don't even know what the fuck's going on, and he's going in there and he's talking to them, he's smelling them, and yeah, I can get some sinister shit right there coming in on a necromancer in a modern day. Think about that, not in a D&D context, but like in a more of a World of Darkness context, right? And that sort of plays to Savage Worlds, doesn't it? You're walking along those streets, and you're a fucking necromancer, dude. You want to distill people and get those oils, get that fucking pineal gland. You need to get fucking bile You need to get fucking blood. You need to do all these things, and then you can sort of pass, and you could give them traits, right? So the will-o-wisp, you can run a deal, and make the people think it's a vampire, because the guy, he was known to, all blood was found in his house, but he's actually a necromancer. He's not drinking the blood. He's using the blood for fucking some ritual, or he's a demonologist. He's using the blood to summon fucking Malak or whatever it is, right? So throwing things that can make the players kind of start chasing the red herring can be really good. And just from reading this, I guess I didn't think about this. This is all just going off the top of my head. I'm not even pumping everything that I'm thinking right now, and that's just off a very, very quick reading, talking to you guys. So I love stuff like this. So, this has gotten the book a point all on its own, just a will-o-wisp description. So, and I'm pretty sure these weren't all written by the same people. It looks kind of, just from reading the writing, someone with a degree in creative writing, it doesn't look like the same person wrote all of these, and certainly not the same level of care was taken. And I get that, right? Some things, you're really on a deadline, you're burnt out, you're like, why the fuck did you give me this monster? What the fuck am I supposed to do with this monster? Like, and I have people ask me to write things, and I'm like, really? Yeah, okay. You gave me one of the worst things, one of the least interesting things to write. I'll try. I'll try, right? And so I get that. Not everybody is, you might give the write-up of a witch, or the next one, to someone, and they're like, what the fuck? A witch? I don't give a fuck about a witch. You might give it to the next person, like, oh, yeah, a witch, yeah. I'm going to get in this witch ass and give you some interesting tidbits about that ass. So, that is a real thing, Just because you're a good writer doesn't mean you write everything well, right? So, let's see here. Playable. Let me see. I may have lost my place again. All right. Okay. All right, so I'll just start at the top. Initially, a will-o-wisp haunts the area near its death, seeking vengeance on those responsible for any and all wrongdoings against it during life. Rightfully so. I know if I was a will-o-wisp, I'd be like, yeah, just start getting a hold of people. Even after it has avenged itself on everyone guilty of even the slightest infraction. I love that, slightest infraction. Really think about that. Like, oh, you cut me off at traffic, did you? That's that ass, isn't it? No, because I was a will-o-wisp. Because you're really talking about hate. So you really got to tap into that most hateful part of yourself, most petty. It's really petty, too, right? So hatefulness and pettiness aren't the same thing, but they can be closely aligned, right? No, they have to be, but they can be closely aligned emotionally. So you need to look at that in yourself and kind of dig out and think of how someone who is primarily petty and primarily hateful, because we're all petty, we're all hateful, but, one person might be petty and hateful at a 1, another person is at a 10, right? So that's a very different deal. So you got to think about that dialed up to 11, right? Like pro wrestling it out. Like, all right, we're going to put this at 11. What does an 11 look like on pettiness? What does an 11 look like on hatefulness? And vengeance. Vengeance is the finest thing a man can get for himself. Think about it like that, right? And you can really bring something to life here. Okay, so this is, however, the hatred and anger that drove it to an undead existence continues, right? It's got its vengeance. But here, the trick is on it. It's the dupe, it's the mark, and it has to keep going and going and going and going. It has a miserable, horrible existence, but it's existence. It's clinging to existence. But it still has that anger. So any sort of infraction, anything, and it's dying to look for something to hate on you for. It can't stand not hating. So when you've traveled into the woods, when you've trespassed, or anything it can construct in its remnants of mental state. I don't want to call it a mind, right? It doesn't have a brain anymore, but any way it can construe to make you its oppressor, its victimizer. It's going to get in that ass for. So that's how you can have something. Maybe you manage to figure out the will-o-wisp is like 300 years old, right? But it's still for that ass. So it has no desire. You're not the grandkids, the people that killed it. You're just people walking through the woods, right? You've really done nothing. But you snapped over a twig, you brushed against a tree. Oh, no, hell no. Now you got to pay. You've got to pay. Because it probably starts to go mad after a certain point, right? Eventually, the spirit tends to gravitate towards lonely, desolate areas where its unnatural spite for all living, for all living, where its unnatural spite for all things living. That's fucking hard for me, wasn't it? Leads it to prey upon unsuspecting travelers. So that's what we're talking about, right? This is unsuspecting travelers. These are people who've done no wrong. They're innocent. But it's not like, haha, I'm going to get you, because it's probably thinking in a way to somehow, oh, yeah, you wore a black hat. Nah, son. People that fucked on me wore a black hat one time. You got a belt? Oh, no, hell no. Not on my lonely ass road, sucker. I'm getting with you. So then you could maybe have it like start fucking on a certain player, and that's why. And then the other players try to get involved, maybe, right? So now it has perfect reason to get them. They try to fucking squash its decrees themselves, so they must be dealt with, and immediately. So that's something that is kind of a way you want to get in. When you have a monster, you want to get inside the monster's head. You want to play your monster just like you do a character. As a game master, once you learn how to do it, you'll run monsters properly. You'll run monsters well. Monsters aren't like, they're not attack you, right? They're going to attack you for a reason, not just, and that's not the reason. There needs to be a reason, right? That ogre may I should just want you to give him your food and your fucking money, right? He don't give a fuck, but maybe he wants to eat you, right? So that's a different deal. Maybe you let him get your left arm, he'll be straight. Just kind of get a flank though, you know what I'm saying? So you got to think about how your monsters are thinking, their minds, their psychology. You got to look at their intellects, And in this game, this monster has a smarts of D8, spirit of D10. So you need to look at smarts of spirits, kind of figuring those things out. And those are high, smarts of D8, certainly above average, and spirit of D10, I mean, a human is D12 cap, so a D8, D10 are pretty good. This thing is smart. But that makes sense, because it was a witch or a warlock, and they were probably smart or had a high willpower or whatever. So, that makes sense. The light of a will-o-wisp varies from cold white to flame orange. The ghost can lessen its brilliance to that of a mere candle, or brighten it to that of a torch at will. So that can be a cool way to do it too. You have this sort of little candle, little flick, and the players, they get all closer to it, flares up, give them a little bit of a jump scare. Maybe you see a shadow moving because of that, But that's just a cat or an owl or whatever, and out in the darkness, trust me, that kind of shit. Anyone's walked around the woods at night, you can tell that kind of shit can look real fucking scary and real big when it really isn't. And it doesn't look scary in the daytime. So you got to kind of take that idea, because you're probably going to see this in the woods, right? You're going to see this on a lonely road, maybe by one of those old bridge. Those, I don't know what they fucking call it. It looked like a goddamn house, like a bridge house or whatever that you would drive through. You'd see it like on all the old horror shit, like in the 80s. And they're probably from like the 50s, maybe something like that. So you have something like that. You're going around this lonely old country road, and there's not a lot of lighting, and it's fucking creepy. Maybe you see it over there, over the water, over the marsh, or in the woods if you're camping or whatever. That it's kind of the setting you want to put it in. So anyway, the will-o-wisp right up here, and that's not that long, right? It doesn't take that long to write. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs, and the first 3 are good size. The last one's very thin. It doesn't take that long to write. That doesn't take that long to do that. Probably spend a few hours at the absolute most to come up with this stuff, do a little bit of research, and put it together. And probably a rewrite or some adding. At least the way I write monsters. I'm gonna write a bunch here, stop, and then eventually get to a finished product where I probably spent 4 or 5 different times adding to it, doing a little research, this type of thing. And it does take more time than you would think. They probably shouldn't write whatever's on top of their head, because then you get something that's shitty. Well, look at this, and then look at some of the other write-ups of creatures here. Like, some of these write-ups they're too thin. They don't give you enough. They just don't. Also, the lack of pictures is, I think, a big thing. The artwork on page 172. I wonder if these are by 2 different artists, because I'm guessing it's a weir white shark, like a Jaws, for those that didn't know what a white shark is. I guess most of you probably do. And the werewolf, they don't look like they're done by the same person. The white shark looks just a lot more detail in it. I really, really like the white shark artwork. The werewolf, I don't really like that much. My son's not in the room, so he's not attacking me right now for besmirching it. I think there was an animal. Of course, for any game master, you give them 50 monsters. They're not going to like all of them. They're not going to use all of them, and you might like stuff that I wasn't really too interested in. The dolls and things like that. I don't really care about those. Most of the Asian monsters, outside of Oni, I generally don't have much use for Asian type of monsters. They're kind of they're kind of often weird in a way that it doesn't resonate to me as something that I really want to use. So some of the Native American stuff is really weird too. Like they have a spearfinger in here, which they say a spearfinger is a terrifying female ogre from Cherokee legend, and I think it's cool too. That's another thing. It's very multi-cultural. They have Native American stuff. They have stuff from not just Japan, but different countries. I think Japan, China, maybe Malaysia. So some places down there, I think they have stuff like that. And of course, different countries from Europe. So they have a lot of different. There's a good number of monsters. Don't get me wrong. And this would be a great thing also to add into your fantasy game. So who's this for? It's not just if you want to run a horror game. There's tons of monsters in here. There's tons of cursed magic items and that sort of thing you could dump into a fantasy Savage Worlds game. You could take the werewolf as a player character here. It's going to make it easier to write a really customized werewolf or vampire or whatever. It's really great for vampires. They did a really good job presenting a vampire as something you could play, right? So that's another thing you can do with the book. You can kind of run, not necessarily trying to clone World of Darkness, but just start from the scratch and kind of get there. Like, okay, we have a city where vampires are political positions, and kind of run shit. So let's throw everything from World of Darkness away, or cherry pick. Let's take these pieces, or whatever, and that can be, really interesting. Make your own clans, and then say, all right, you got to take this power and this power and this power, and these powers here are banned to your clan. These powers are banned to your clan. These powers are banned to your clan. Your clan has to take X, Y, and Z, or can take X, Y, and Z. It's allowable to them, whatever. And that can certainly make it interesting. I'm trying to. There was yeah. You always hear me ranting about animals in these, dude, but yeah, I don't know. So, immediately, and I had to look the word up because I only halfway remembered it, but they say this, okay? So, all right, I'm going to read you the first paragraph under colossal spiders. And I rant and rave about animals because I have a really, really strong dislike of false information, fake news, nonsense, right? Whether it's something that you care about or not, everyone should orient themselves to understanding correctly, right? That's important, and it should be important to you. Otherwise, you're basically a fucking idiot, right? And you become an idiot because you're chock full of misinformation. So you're causing issues. So let's read this. Tiny spiders are bad enough, but arachnids larger than humans are the stuff of nightmares. Like their smaller cousins, colossal spiders have 8 legs. Again, that's right. A hairy body. Well, they don't have hairy bodies. It's going to make you think they have hair on them. So that's a minor quibble, though. And deadly mandibles. So spiders do not have mandibles. And I immediately read that one. That's not right. So, and it's an easy fix, right? I mean, a second of research would have taught you this. So, you just didn't research this. So spiders do not have mandibles. They have chelicerae, which are external structures that work somewhat like a jaw does. So the terminology isn't correct. And that's like a really, really, really easy fix, right? I mean, so. But I mean, again, I guess that's a minor thing overall. There was something else, but they have a lot of really interesting things in here. So let's kind of go through and talk about them. They have Slender Man. That's something something you might like to use in a game. They have a Skeletal T-Rex, which under most circumstances I think would be a little too hokey for a horror game. Like that seems like more something you have like in a fantasy game. I don't think you're really going to scare someone with that. They're going to kind of quietly be like, "Come on, dude." Really? It's a little goofy. And inside of a lot of museums, you're not really looking at real dinosaur bones. They're just like casts. I don't know, otherwise, but most of what you see on display in museums are just casts. They're not. They have a really cool picture of a monster scarecrow. I think monster scarecrows are really, really cool monsters at low levels. Really, in any type of game, they're scary as fuck. Like if you can portray a farm correctly, just an empty, vast space, it can be really cool. They have Wendigos, which are a really popular thing now with creepypastas. So that's something that they have. And they have a lot of basic stuff now, like security guards, policemen, rabid animals, and then they have like some write-ups for like a cultist and a witch and things like that, which obviously you could do yourself, but. Kind of harkens back to old D&D books where they just have like a big write-up of a bunch of different types of humans. You're like, I don't know about this or not, but they have Nagin from Indian folklore, which I mean it's good. It's good to have the different things, but they have mutants, and there are more monsters in this book than I thought they would have had. Like not having before I read it, I was like, oh. So I mean that would be a point in their favor. The Greater Mummy, which I guess is opposed to the mummy you would play. Metal Juggernaut. The artwork of that looks kind of weird. Mad Scientist. Mad Science is always the best type of science, by the way. So I do encourage that from really anyone. If you're a graduate student out there working on science, fuck the bullshit. Get into mad science. No one's doing it these days. Back in the 1890s. Everyone was doing the mad science, so he was going to get edged out. But now, just get down there and get your mad science on. Living Grimoire, Living Topiary. That Living Topiary sounds like something more for like a D&D game. I think players would look at that as a little. And the big monster is a shrub. Come on, man. Living God. The living gods are kind of neat. Dread Lich. I am not touching that, Gabe. Little quotes in here. They have stuff from Irish folklore. Alright, so here's another thing. Again, you get stuff wrong that is really easily researchable in animals, it's driving me fucking nuts. Alright, it says Giant Leech. A leech is a quivering slug. A leech is not a slug. A slug is a mollusk. So, a leech is a carnivorous or parasitic type of worm. Worms and mollusks are not in the same order. They're not even that closely related. A slug is related to like a squid. So I mean they're not. I mean it's like more related to a squid than it is a leech. So that's, just really incorrect. And again, you're writing this down, so people are going to go, "Oh yeah, a leech is a type of slug." They'll read that and they'll have that in their memory forever because that's probably the only time they've read about leeches, which is problematic. So you have one paragraph of information here, and it's wrong. So maybe before you print that, go back and write a leech is a quivering worm which drinks the blood from its prey. So that would be correct, right? So, And maybe it seems like harboring a big deal, but again, you're woefully spreading misinformation, which is just not a good thing. And in this day and age, it's really easy to look these things up. And just from a quick read, if I can pick these up, you know, a lot of other people will too. You know, so and that's something I've banged on D&D many times because they get if they write an animal in there, it's almost always wrong. They're like, well, that's wrong. You fucking idiots! And should not have researched something. So don't be in that mindset. Be of a better mindset than that. You have a game that does not have the kind of reach D&D does, so you can't get small things wrong where people go, ugh, come on, dude, get it right. Just get it right. They have Homunculus in here as a monster. You think Homunculus is a pretty scary monster? No? He doesn't think so. What if the Homunculus rocks? Hoarfrost Warrior, that seems like a pretty specific thing. Helldrake. Helldrake is a weird one here. Like, I don't know why it's in this book. This is just, I'm not sure if it's in the fantasy book or not. I kind of feel like it might be, but I'm not going to cross-check that right now. This does not seem like something for a horror book. Like, Helldrake, it's a giant fucking Tiamat-looking dragon from hell. Like, if something like that's appearing, you know, I don't know. It doesn't seem like that would be, it seems like something from a fantasy game. It's just simply, you know, too powerful, and it's not scary in a way where a person goes, oh, actually get scared like a Cthulhu or something. It's kind of like, that's cool. Like, you'll think, oh, that's pretty cool. Hate is apparently a monster, so there's that. They wrote up hags, so they have a base write-up, and they have like a write-up for some other things. They don't have night hags in there, but they have swamp hags, and I think they had a wood hags. Let me see, am I right about that? Wood hag. I don't know if that's a relative of mine, I'm not sure. Then there's also just normal hags. So they say a lot of them are ogres, so that the wood hag may be related to me. It's totally possible. But you know, the wood hag got some writings. So they're basically like all the Hansel and Gretel shit, all the bad stuff about witches. Those are hags. Those aren't witches, but hags could have been witches or ogres or whatever. Gravebane. So it says when a powerful necromancer dies, but a spirit refuses to move on, a Gravebane may be born. So the Gravebane is something you could immediately work in with the Will-O-Wisp before, right? Will-O-Wisp, Gravebane. So we're starting to build a group of monsters, right? We might add zombies in there. We might add ghouls in there. These type of things for a game. You don't want to have like everything in the world, right? And you may have a reason. Like, it has Greys here, you know, the aliens. So they're right beside it. You may have a reason to have Gravebanes and Will-O-Wisp and zombies and Greys all in a game, right? It certainly may work. But, you know, you need to come up with a reason. However, they've already done the work for you. A Gravebane and a Will-O-Wisp. Almost the same thing, right? When a powerful necromancer dies, but his spirit refuses to move on, a Gravebane may be born. Well, it basically said the same thing, right? Although it was violent death to the Will-O-Wisp, but that you could certainly work the Gravebane in there. I think the Gravebane was dumb, though. Let me see if I'm right about that. Yeah, well, it has D8 smarts, but it has A, which means animal, beside it. So, I think that's weird. Like, I guess it's to say it's a smart animal and it's working well for an animal, but I mean, it's still a fucking animal. So, I mean, a D8 is smart. That's a bit odd. Like, animals themselves, I mean, not all animals have a D4 intelligence, right? A cockroach and a dolphin are not the same intelligence, right? A chimpanzee and a dung beetle don't have the same level of intellect. All right, they just don't. So trying to represent all animals with D4s, but when animals have higher than often human intelligence, that's also a bit confusing. So here we get a section of golems. Because of D&D, like when you write golems, and I'm going to do something of fire too, so I'm not banging on them for this, but you end up with a lot of golems. There's a bunch of them here. There's goblins. This picture of this filthy little creature. Yeah. So it just goes into goblins, like stealing people's kids. And goblins will steal people's kids if they get a chance. They are filthy, despisable creatures. Ghouls here. Let's see if this... Ghouls are vile scavengers, feasting off carrion and unfortunate victims who cross their paths while feeding. Ghouls have pale, rubbery skin with the texture of uncooked pastry. Their eyes are large and glow with a pale, feral yellow color. They have sharp claws and teeth, often with shreds of rendered flesh hanging from them. Ghouls typically scavenge in packs and live in vast layers of 20 plus individuals with a wild card, king or queen. So it kind of sounds more like a D&D ghoul than a Lovecraftian ghoul, but let's see. So they don't have, they're not undead, so that pushes more towards, yeah, they're not undead. Okay, this is undead traits are, undead's pretty strong. They don't have that advantage or whatever you want to call it. So that does push them closer to being Lovecraftian ghouls. But again, and I mean, you know, you could certainly take the stat block and run it as a Lovecraftian ghoul. I mean, whatever. And there are other stat blocks for Savage Wolves for Lovecraftian ghouls and Eldritch Sky and the Cthulhu, whatever they're called. I have it back here somewhere. Whatever the Call of Cthulhu book is. White Lady. Now, White Ladies as monsters? Come on, bro. That's just racist to make White Ladies monsters. Even if they're not a Karen. Come on, that's ridiculous. But they have one of the monsters called a White Lady. I guess it's like Ghost. Little section here about playing fair with a monster. So, you know, ghosts. I'm not sure what the difference between ghosts and a phantom is. I'm guessing ghosts are probably stronger. Flying Head. They have the Flying Head in here. I think that's Malaysian. Oh, this says North American Indians. Interesting. I think one of them, the Flying Head, thinks is Malaysian. They used to have this in some really bad 80s. Maybe it was Grim Reaper. I'm not sure. There's a head flying around, monster head, like a flesh ripper. That's like body horror there. I don't really like that stuff too much. Looks like the guy off of the original Hellraiser movie and he's coming back to life. I did like the original Hellraiser movie though. Emotion Spirit. Okay. Evil Clown, yeah. Evil Clown. I believe the Evil Clown is supposed to be the thing from It. Emotion Spirit. I read it. They have something like that in here. I remember reading it. I dreamed about this guy in a dirty red and green sweater. Nancy, A Nightmare on Elm Street. That was a good movie, the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Not too much the sequels. The remake of it I thought was pretty good too, because they actually kind of, like, they kind of skirted around initially Freddy being a child molester, and they kind of come up with that more in the remake, where you're like, ooh, this guy's a piece of shit. Like, Robert Englund played him where, I mean, he was beloved, right? Freddy was beloved. You're like, I killed them kids, Freddy. You like wanted Freddy to do murder on children, right? I mean, think about that. But you did. You're watching Freddy movies. You wanted to murder fucking kids. Wow, motherfucker made his charisma roll. Let's just say what it is, right? We're gamers. He made his charisma roll. But in the new one, they did not try to make him likable. He's a fucking monster. So when Freddy's a baby face, like it kind of fucks the deal, right? And while that made him very popular, it also made the movies problematic because it's like a wrestling match. Like if you're rooting for the bad guy, what's the good guy supposed to do? You know, it's a bit of an issue. Dream Evil. That's the name of it's a band. Is Dream Evil a band or a song?
I think it's a band.
Is it a band? Okay. I don't know music like I did when I was his age, but I know I've listened to that before. Doppelganger. We got the Junkyard Dog, baby. Again, that's just racist. You can call the Junkyard Dog a monster. That's ridiculous. Who's booking this? Bill Watts? This is ridiculous. GYT and a monster. He's been loved by children, baby. The Junkyard Dog is not a horror monster. He was a beloved wrestler, Sylvester Ritter, from the fucking Mid-South itself, from even the WWF, from even the WCW when he was mad out of shape. And Dave Meltzer called him the junk food dog. And he was still the whole time doing lots and lots of fucking cocaine. Well, for a lot of cocaine. Allegedly, purely speculative. Okay. Let's see. bones and dismembered corpses. So there's a lot of stuff in here. Again, some of it is kind of, while others are pretty interesting. They have the Dampier in here, which I believe you can play a Dampier. I think it's I think it's an edge you can take as a vampire, which, you have to use an edge to do it. So overall, it would make you weaker than another vampire because they have an edge to spend on something else. But then you get the advantage of being the Dampier. So Devilkin are minor infernals from the abyss. All right, so that's kind of neat. This one is, but this one has the legs and head of a goat, so it's probably not a good idea for him to be in the same book as the Homunculus, huh? He's probably going to have to pay for his tactics. Spine demon. So there's a lot of different demons here. And I think that's all right. This one has a belt. Like, he's trying to put that belt on the line. I'll fight a demon for that championship. Yeah, the one on page 122. Look at it. He's got a gold belt. Like, that ain't a buckle, son. That man's trying to represent with a territory title. What is he, the Alabama champion? I'll fucking take him on. Your main man will go against him in the cage and win that title. Give a fuck about him and his demonic tactics. They have Pazuzu, which they apparently make a whole type of. I think they're just like a type of demon. Pazuzu is. I want to say Pazuzu was a Middle Eastern god. Check that out. Don't let me give you something that's wrong. But I think he was a Middle Eastern god that I guess the Jews demonized. I think he's pre-Christian demonized, like a Lilith. That's a weird picture on 120 of this frog. Giant. I guess maybe that's the gluttony demon. Hellhound. So there's a lot of. I'm still going through demons. Demon worm, gladiator, demon. So there's a lot of demons in here. You probably wouldn't need to use this many demons in a horror game, but I don't know. Like, some of these, I think were also in the fantasy companion, and it's problematic. Like, if you're going to buy both of them, you don't really want the same thing reprinted. If it's reprinted and something's added or something's changed, that's one thing. But if it's just here, what you paid for before, that's sort of a feel bad, right? You might say, oh, some people don't want the fantasy, some people don't want the horror, right? But I want them both, so fuck all that shit. And they'll put this one over Vrakresh, the Thousand Maws. There was some stuff here with one of the magic items about him as well. You could summon him up. I don't know. That might be something they've created. I'm not sure if I know that name. But maybe someone will tell me that's from X, Y, or Z mythology, and I have forgotten it or never learned it. Who can know? But there's a bunch of, like, I guess you call them minor gods in here as well. Dark gods, what they call them. The Dance Macabre. All right, so I'm going to read this because and I'll tell you why after I'm done. I'm reading this more to my son. I'll let the rest of you guys listen in. Dance Macabre. A dance macabre is both a singular entity and an event. The creature itself, often called the dance master, is differentiated from the event it leads, is a skeletal figure clad in bright-colored robes. Although it has no capacity to breathe, it plays on a set of pipes crafted from the bones of the damned. The tune is not only spellbindingly haunting, it is deadly to mortals. Following the dance master are a number of skeletons, previous victims who defend their master from attack. So this is basically, that's why I'm reading it to my son, the Ghost video, the heavy metal band Ghost. It's just their video. Well, what's the song? Is it?
Dance Macabre.
Is that the name of the song? Okay, that's what I thought the name of the song was, but then I was doubting myself. So it's just watch that. Watch the music video. That's literally what this is. So I'm guessing whoever did this was the Ghost fan, because this is clearly that, right? And I'm sure my son would love to run a game in the world of Tobias Forge with nameless fiends and such like that. They're your second favorite band, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
That's his second favorite band.
A close second.
A close second to Powerwolf, and that's really saying something. But he loves him some damn Ghost. Yeah, the ghost is in my house all the time. There's a new ghost song coming out. That's what my son sounds. He's a gremlin. He infests the house. Let's see. Chupacabra. I really put a lot down for the mock here. Feed me, Seymour. That's Audrey 2, Little Shop of Horrors. Carnivorous plant. Blood Mist. Blood Mist is kind of neat. This is I don't know when it initially started. I know these were in Ravenloft in 18th second edition. In fact, they might even be called Blood Mist there. The destruction of an ancient vampire's physical body isn't necessarily the end of its existence. Through dark magic, it can be brought back into existence as near mindless ethereal clouds of vapor with an insatiable bloodlust by those who know the proper rituals. So yeah, it's pretty it's a pretty neat thing to use. I've used it once ever in a game. That's because it was in a module. It was in the Light in the Belfry module, which is a CD module for 18th second edition Ravenloft. That went in there, and that is a great module. I've run it twice. It was very, very fun. If I could just get a rip of the CD, I'd probably run it again if I could just get a rip of the CD. Blob. A blob is an amorphous mass of acidic jelly with an insatiable hunger. And they'd be insatiable in this mode, don't they? This has an insatiable bloodlust. This has an insatiable hunger. This motherfucker might have been... He needed a goddamn Snickers when he was writing a blob in the blood, isn't he? Yeah, but it looks like it's probably the same person who wrote both of these. I could be wrong, though. It might be an alien entity brought to Earth on a crashed satellite, a creature from another dimension, or the result of rampant pollution. So the Blob, the movie, both the original and the remake, are both very good. If you haven't seen those, I'd recommend them. And they certainly make a great monster, or even a whole short, maybe 5-session long game for. They got the Black-Eyed Kids. They've abbreviated that to BEKs. I guess that's an internet thing. I'm pushing this Black Coach. A lot of stuff on him. Giant Bat. The Borrow Dweller. Yeah, those are cool. Those are like whites in D&D. They're fucking terrifying monsters. I'll tell you, any of my old players, when they start hearing me talk about how this undead might have like some shining blue eyes or red eyes or whatever, oh boy, they're gone. They don't want no parts of that. Ooh, level drain? No, oh, hell no. I hear you. Yeah, this Philippines, the Aswang. I have one of these, and these like. They open like this. There were these like long, rectangular books. I got a whole bunch of them for my son when he was a kid, and they had the Aswang in there. Yeah, Philippines. There's a lot of the monsters that they have there. They're fucking weird. I don't know. Like I said, I don't really get with Asian monsters very much. They're just, I don't know. They just don't really stimulate me to be into them. Except for Oni. I fucking love Oni. But, oh yeah, I have a quote from the movie Them. Them is a great movie. It is. I'm trying to think of the first Godzilla. There's probably a Godzilla movie I like more than Them, but Them is a really good movie. There were so many of these bad, giant monster movies, but Them was good. Them really was good, so I would recommend Them as well. Maybe we should do a video about your main man recommends sci-fi and horror movies list. Colossal Ant. Okay. I was just doing a quick scan to see if there was anything that was going to make me furious about that. Man-insect hybrids. So, Well, okay, so they suggest such as praying mantis or a wasp, right? But of course, when we're thinking about this, we're thinking about the movie The Fly. Man reptilian hybrid, man dog hybrid, man bear pig. Let's see, alligator lion hybrid, and there are a lot of members of the family. So I'm just off the top of my head. The same family of alligators and a lot of extinct species, and there's a picture of this. There was something that actually looked, I mean, just like this. It's not an alligator lion hybrid. It was just, there were, it's not exactly right, but there were basically things that were alligator-like that ran around in the time of the dinosaurs. Just, and they were like alligators. Alligator's not a dinosaur, and a dinosaur's not an alligator. But there were things in their family that were fully terrestrial. They weren't, half the time in the water like alligators. You could chase that ass. So that's pretty fucking horrifying. But that basically looks like what that is. So animal hybrids. So this is like if you want to do like an Island of Dr. Monroe or really any type of mad scientist type of deal, you could take that. And I think that probably plays better in like 1890s to like 1930s. I think nowadays, I don't know how scary that would be, just because it's almost too real. Like, creatures. Yeah, so again, I like the book. Oh, those look like that's a deep one coming out of the water, and there's some kind of a tentacle thing out there. There's a picture on, let's see, what page is that? Page 100. That is actually quite cool looking. It's like a deep one coming out of the water. This is probably, it looks like gaslight, so, well, then again, the weapons look more. Alright, so it's Red and Gabe. I guess that's Gabe. I can only see the back of his head. Normally he doesn't have hair. This one has hair. But that definitely looks like Red. And I'm trying to piece together the year. She's wearing what, I don't know if those are slacks or jeans, but that would not have been something even remotely common for a woman in like 1890. So, but Gabe's outfit looks like it could be older, but it might just be a suit. Or you would be wearing a suit out here, and you're not in like. So I don't know. I don't know what year this is. It's supposed to be. Anyway, they're standing there, and there's a deep one coming out of the water. He looks really more like a Sahagin than like your typical deep one. He looks more fish-like than say deep one typically looks. And then there's some kind of like tentacle horror out in the bay, or maybe that's a cove. Looks like a cove. It's a big lighthouse. That looks very nice. Anyway, so that's been my review. I really like it. I think it's a great book to get. I think they did a really good job on this all the way around. There are a few things I did nitpick here, but I'm looking forward to getting this. I'm looking forward to getting my Savage Worlds Fantasy opinion in the mail, hopefully shortly. And I will show you guys maybe an unboxing of that when I get it. But this one I'm more looking forward to. I think this is pretty cool. I guess the next one would be the science fiction companion. I think they've only ever had fantasy, horror, superheroes, and science fiction. I wonder if there would be in the SWADE version, if there'll be a fifth companion to come out. I think so much of their stuff is pulp. They might stay away from doing a pulp. That might not be something that would necessarily appear, a pulp companion. I don't know what else they would have. Most of the other type of things they have are well, it'll be interesting to see if they do. Anyway, I'm your main man. That's been my review.